Welcome to episode 212 of Sports Management Podcast. Today's guest is Ed Horne, the Chief Operating Officer at On Location, a sports hospitality company set to deliver premium experiences. Ed has a long background in the sports industry, and he has worked for organizations like NHL, NFL, and 160/90 before joining On Location. Ed has been instrumental in getting NHL players to play in the Olympics, as well as being part of organizing the first ever Super Bowl halftime show. It was great speaking to Ed and learning from his wisdom. We spoke about key components for successful events, what fans request from a premium sports experience, the skills you need to succeed in the sports industry, his involvement in the first ever Super Bowl halftime show, his career journey and pitfalls along the way, and much more. Ed Horne, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
It's great to have you on the show. You are currently the COO of On Location. So can you tell us a little bit about this company and this role?
Sure. So On Location is the really leader in global premium hospitality, and what that means is we work with many, if not most, of the biggest sports entities, rights holders, leagues, properties around the globe, and that includes the IOC. We executed against the Paris Olympics in 2024. We work with FIFA. We work with the National Football League, UFC, WWE, NCAA. The list continues. So think about all the biggest global properties around the world, and we are that premium hospitality provider.
So you transitioned from Endeavor 160/90, a culture-led marketing agency. I also know that you're from an advertising background. So how do you feel like this has helped you now in this current role in hospitality?
Yeah, my career has largely been built on involvement in sports and entertainment. So, when I came into the world of Endeavor was to build, as you say, 160/90, cultural marketing agency that worked with some of the biggest brands around the world as they sort of connect with consumers through all things passion. And now moving into the On Location role, it really leverages so many of the relationships and areas of the business that I've been in. So it's sort of a natural building block as On Location settles into being part of the world of TKO.
Yeah, and you mentioned before, that you're doing some of the largest events and working with the biggest organizations, and Super Bowl, FIFA World Cup, Winter Olympics is something that you're set to deliver. How is it to work with these big events? How is the planning process? I mean, these are like years ahead to plan something like this. So how does it look like planning such a mega event?
Yeah, listen, so coming out of Paris, we delivered, the biggest hospitality program that the Olympic movement had ever seen, and delivered that seamlessly. So I think built a lot of credibility with the Olympic movement in that. We now move towards Milano Cortina, which has its own operational sort of challenges and opportunities tied with it. Three different really sort of regions between Milano, Cortina, and Livigno as well. So, moving people through all those different locations is, just what we do, and deliver it in a seamless way that, really gives people just an additional opportunity to engage in the games in ways that just never existed before. And, so that's the Olympics. We're actually in the process also of, beginning to get very close to delivering the same across World Cup, and 3 countries, 104 matches, 16 different venues. So the scale and scope at what we do is frankly remarkable, like nothing that's ever been done before, but doing it in a way that is very curated, very specific, giving people, frankly, at all sort of, ends of the spectrum, the opportunity to experience, these big global platforms, in ways that suit their needs and, their expectations.
And you mentioned that there are multiple countries hosting. This is more and more common now, and you mentioned, of course, the World Cup coming up. So that's an additional element of difficulty for you and your team, right?
Yeah, it is, but it's also opportunity. The benefit of different cultures being able to, come into, not just the U.S., but Mexico and Canada as well, experience, the passion for the beautiful game, across so many different states, venues, countries. It creates complexities, no doubt about it, but it really does make sure that everybody has the opportunity to be satisfied in the way that they want to experience, in this case, the World Cup.
I mean, there's a lot of going into it. We mentioned that. So how do you balance like logistical execution, elevating the hospitality? There are also like immersive tech and everything that you need to go into such an event.
Yeah, listen, it's all ultimately based on the experience that somebody has, and the experience economy is real, and it's a driver of so much of what's happening. As a matter of fact, I saw some stats recently that in 2023, sports tourism, which all of this ultimately sort of ladders into that, was about a $600 billion business, and we now project, based on what we've seen, that that business by 2032 could approach $1.7 trillion. So what that means is the appetite is there, the opportunity is there, and we just need to make sure that what we offer to customers, whether it be a consumer or a brand, satisfies and meets that need, and that the execution of that, the delivery of that is seamless. And that sounds obvious, but creating the right product and giving somebody an experience that they come out of in a way that is memorable, is really what we do. And the fact that I think largely across all socioeconomic and different demographics, experiences matter to people now. It's material goods, sure, but experiences and the ability to have a communal experience is really what this is all about.
For sure. And I mean, everyone experience things differently, right? So in order to have as many people as possible being happy with the event, what are some things that you see that are extra important for someone to come to the event and feel like they had a great time?
Well, it starts with their first interaction. It starts before they ever get to the event. So it's ensuring that, their first touch of, contact is a good experience, that they understand what's available to them and that's handled properly. Communication leading up to the event is well handled. Obviously, on site, whether that be hospitality or transportation or accommodations or all of the things that we're able to provide, especially big global events where people are coming from different countries, different regions, different territories, and then the follow through post event, so that there's, I guess, maybe a cliche of the driveway to driveway experience, but all of that matters. And if any one of those things is interrupted or not seamless along the way, we run the risk of somebody that's not completely satisfied. And we treat every customer with that kid glove curated approach, because that's the way the customers expect to be handled in an elevated experience sort of scenario.
There are different levels, I guess, different VIP packages, but also there should be something for everyone. The people that don't have that economic opportunity to take that package, they could have something else. So, also find the ladder of all different things there.
That's exactly right, and that is that is the approach, which is to make sure that people at all sort of spending levels or interest levels can be satisfied, and we've spent a lot of time ensuring that that is the case, and those individuals or brands should feel like they're being treated the same way, no matter which end of that spectrum that they decide to commit.
I thought about a different thing when we talked about the World Cup will be in 3 countries and the complexity that comes with that. But we have also like now political, aspect that could come in, but also there are different regulations in different countries. So how much of this needs to be considered beforehand?
We haven't at this point seen any impact on the interest, the commitment to packages across any of the markets or any of those 16 venues. So while it certainly is an area that we need to be aware of, we comply across all areas, and our partner in FIFA really is the one sort of handling any of those things that could or might have impact. But the interest is tremendous. We're seeing such momentum in terms of commitments and packages being sold. So we're very encouraged by what we're seeing.
That's great. Also, technology obviously is something that is very important in the sports industry and hospitality and everything. So what's the role of that with regards to your work and when it comes to, for example, personalization, mobile interactivity, and so forth?
Yeah, you need to meet consumers where they are and talk to them in the ways that they want to be talked to, whether again that's mobile, that's web based, whatever the case may be. But it really is the combination of sort of the human interaction and the ability to scale through technology. So we've got a significant tech infrastructure, but that tech infrastructure shouldn't be the replacement for people feeling like they have a direct connection, they've got somebody that they can reach out to. So it really is a balance between the two. But for sure, tech allows you to scale and allows us to be able to provide the best possible curated experience for people.
So looking ahead a couple of years, where do you see the sports hospitality going? Where do you see that it will grow and where it's going?
Yeah, the appetite and the opportunity, almost seems insatiable. People, again, as we talked about, really want to have that elevated experience, and it's no longer, only about buying a ticket to the event. Now it's also about, all of those things that can provide experiences, and again, transportation, hospitality, and sort of curated things that actually even go outside the event. So people traveling in for Milano Cortina, the ability for them to be able to experience other things outside the games, trips to the other areas of the Dolomites, for example, if we're talking about Cortina, or when we talk about, LA 28 a few years from now, people coming into the US, us helping them to, curate experiences that might allow them to see other parts of the country or other regions as well. So that's where we see all of this going. And as we look forward to next year, the Super Bowl in San Francisco and Milano Cortina and the LA 28 opportunity coming, FIFA World Cup before that, the scale is incredible. On Location, as the official hospitality provider across all of those, and that's not even mentioning so many of the other properties and partners that we have. So we're just excited about where this is all going. We're excited about sort of the future of the hospitality industry. And again, I mentioned that 1.7 trillion dollars of spending in anticipation in the next 7, 8, 9 years or so. That just means that those that can deliver this, On Location being the leader in that industry, as long as we provide the best possible experience for all people in whatever sort of venue or partnership they're looking to engage in, we just think the future is really bright.
Yeah, I can see that. And it's so interesting to hear that, all of this, everyone knows about these great events, right? But maybe not everyone knows about On Location and what's happening behind the scene. But it's your great work that makes this come to fruition and for someone to be able to watch these great events. So it's really interesting to get a peek behind the curtains.
Yeah, well, listen, we have a tagline, brand positioning of closer than ever, and that's really what we're all about: is bringing people closer than ever to these incredible events and giving them experiences that they're going to talk about for a lifetime. And when the On Location brand is part of that discussion, as the one being able to deliver these, then that's where it all really further comes together.
Fantastic. So I like to get to know the guest personally a little bit better also. And, reading up on you, obviously, before this chat scene, a lot of experience from the ice hockey industry, which I'm working in right now. So really curious. So can you take us back to like how you got into the sports industry and how your journey has been from that point?
Yeah. So you mentioned hockey. I played hockey all my life. I played up through college, but when I was getting to that point, I realized I actually wasn't all that good. So, a career professionally might not have been, in the cards for me. So I actually began refereeing hockey, kids hockey, minor league hockey, worked my way up through junior hockey, and I actually officiated an Olympics as an on ice official. And that sort of led me to this moment in time where I, thought maybe I would have a career as a official in the NHL. But when I was at the Olympics, actually, I began to see how brands were utilizing the Olympic movement as a way to be able to sort of position them and, sort of do business. And it was my first exposure to the fact that, sports marketing, early days of sports marketing, but sports marketing was an opportunity. So that led me to working in the advertising industry. I then worked at the National Football League. And then when Gary Bettman became commissioner at the NHL at that time, I was part of, sort of the early team that he had assembled to, sort of bring the NHL and hockey to some new levels. So, that was sort of the impetus for my career. And, I've now been in the world of Endeavor and TKO for the last 14, 15 years or so, which brings me to On Location.
Wow. And some 2 years at the NFL also, if I was correct.
I was at the NFL early in my career, and then left the NFL to again join the National Hockey League, and to sort of help that that league continue to grow. And it all comes full circle. We talk about the Olympics. I was early on part of the team that was able to establish the first time that NHL players went to the Olympics in Nagano in '98. So there's a through line in much of what I've done in my career leading up to sort of where I am today.
We all thank you for that, getting the greatest players to play.
Yeah, by the way, we're so excited to see the NHL players part of Milano Cortina, and to the conversation around premium hospitality. Hockey is obviously an area of real interest and a draw for consumers as we think about the winter games.
For sure. I also read that you were involved in one of the first halftime shows for Super Bowl as well.
Yeah, this goes back now, but early on in my career at the NFL, the Super Bowl halftime show wasn't yet what it is today, and I was part of the team that was able to sort of more fully establish that as a commercial and sort of exposure opportunity, and was able to sort of marry the opportunity for talent at a major scale along with brands and be able to bring that to a way that is I guess maybe played a very very small role in sort of the anticipation that comes with every Super Bowl halftime show now.
Wow. How does it feel like looking back now, talking about it, that you have had a role in these major events? And, we mentioned the halftime, the NHL players to Olympics. These are monumental changes in the sports industry, and you were a part of that.
Yeah, I've been so fortunate, and for me, I just continue to remind myself to be curious. And sports and entertainment are culture. Culture is sort of what moves people and sort of drives their passions. And the ability to be involved in all of these different events and properties and sort of experiences is just incredible. But I just continue to remind myself to be curious about what's next. How can we continue to innovate? How can we create opportunities that give people sort of this connection to the world of culture? And as back to where I am now at On Location, that's really what the business is all about. Is creating those memorable opportunities and as I say, bringing people closer than ever to the things they care about.
That's great. And you mentioned Endeavor before. I mean, a big group that owns the majority stake in UFC, right? Still?
So TKO is now the parent company that UFC, WWE, On Location, our PBR business, the IMG business as well, all sit inside of. So we're thrilled with On Location's position within TKO, and to your point of WWE and UFC, the On Location business supports those businesses with hospitality products as well, whether that's SummerSlam that happened this summer in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, or across all the UFC events and beyond as well. So it's very synergistic. The businesses that sit inside of the world of TKO.
Yeah, and UFC, I've been following that for a couple of years, and I mean, a fantastic journey that they have made as well, from being neglected by everyone not getting a venue to getting to now putting on world-class events.
The UFC is incredible. If you haven't been to a UFC event, you should, because it truly is just an unbelievable global experience. The fan base is incredible. The fighters are, such great ambassadors for the sport and for the event as well. And the sky's the limit in terms of sort of UFC's continued global expansion.
Yeah, definitely. We looked back on your career. Now you're at COO On Location. Looking ahead, what do you want to do? Like, is there anything more in your career that you would like to do, or what drives you nowadays?
Yeah, listen, I mentioned curiosity. But that truly is what drives me. Is what can we do better? What can we do next? What else is the opportunity? How can we drive new opportunities and new areas of interest that's going to satisfy people's needs and desires? So I'm more excited about the business than I've ever been before. I'm more excited about where the industry is going than I've ever been before. And I'm just again fortunate to be part of it, and the things that move people's emotions and passions, to be able to have some level of involvement in that is pretty incredible.
Definitely. And I think it was on your LinkedIn bio. It says curious about the world around me.
Yeah, by the way, and I think that further gets to that point, which is we are in this incredible period of time of growth and opportunity. And, any of us that have the opportunity to be part of that just owe it to ourselves to really be able to look around and see, sort of what we can do to, to help be part of the next evolution of that.
So there are a lot of people listening, some of them young, early in their career. From someone who has such experience as yourself, what would be some advice that you have for a person who wants to pursue a career in sports?
Yeah, what the one I would say is bring a work ethic. It shouldn't be a differentiator, but I really do believe that it is. And I can tell you in my career, I've always tried to make up for a lack of knowledge and smarts sometimes with just a work ethic. Showing up early and staying late. We're in the sports and entertainment industry, so there's a lot of sports metaphors that sort of apply here. And I would just tell people just work hard, show up, make yourself invaluable. And then also, like, trust yourself, trust your instincts, and combine those two things of instincts, smarts, and work ethic. And I always believe there's good opportunities for those that are going to be able to deliver on those attributes.
For sure. Has there been any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, of course. There always are. This is never a straight line. I've had, plenty of those days where you sort of stare at the ceiling at night and, sort of what could you have done differently? But I believe sort of going back to those points of, every day you're going to get up and work harder than the day before, and, going to have a level of confidence in who you are, what you are. And, I think the other thing too is never be afraid to ask questions, because I've learned so much from others around the industry simply by sort of, looking to get guidance from those that have come before and those that might have other ideas. So I believe that the way to overcome adversity is to face it head on, be honest with yourself on what you've done good and what you could do better, and then look to surround yourself with people that you want to be rowing the boat with together and can help each other.
That's great. I'd like to end on a networking question. So who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this show?
Interesting. By the way, there's so many people, but as I sort of think about some of the questions you've asked me, my friend Spencer Gordon, who runs the sponsorship and media and event business for AB InBev, located in the U.S., is just a terrific executive, oversees an enormous portfolio of involvement activity, and he'd be a great guest. By the way, there's lots of others, I'm sure, but he just comes to mind.
That's a perfect suggestion. Ed, thank you so much for taking the time and for the last time changes here. You're a class act and really interesting. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
Absolutely. Great to spend time with you, Marcus.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsMPodcast.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.